Adele. Hi, my name is Frank. It's Friday. That means it is time to kick back, relax, and talk music. Coming up, I want to talk about how Adele is making life difficult for us record collectors. But first, record of the week. So Judas Priest fans will know that back in 1993, Judas Priest released a career retrospective called Metalworks 73 to 93. I recently obtained that on vinyl finally, and it's an exceptional compilation. It is a great album, but Judas Priest fans may not be aware of this related album. Check it out. This is a sampler from that Metalworks LP. Right here it says, Judas Priest, pure classic Priest, play often and loud. 10 classic tracks from the forthcoming album, Metalworks. And over here it says, promotional only, not for resale. So this is a UK pressing, and it is on this sort of silver vinyl, and it's a great track listing. I found this on eBay, oh gosh, probably a decade ago. You know, it's got the standards on here. Well, they're all standards. Electric Eye, Victim of Changes, Painkiller, Turbo Lover, Exciter. You've got another thing coming. Heading Out to the Highway, The Sinner, Screaming for Vengeance, and Nightcrawler. Really good. As I said, the album itself is a fantastic compilation, but this is a cool sampler from that. Unfortunately, and I hate to break it to you guys, this pressing sounds horrible. There is a lot of background noise on this record, which was really disappointing because I was happy when I found it. And that may explain why this record still sells relatively cheap. Looking on Discogs, what does it say here? The average selling price for this record in Canadian dollars is $32. So that is like, I don't know, 27 or 28 bucks US, which is crazy because, I mean, despite the issues, this is a cool part of the Judas Priest collection. That is this week's record of the week. Judas Priest, the classic tracks from Metalworks. Okay, I want to talk about Adele. Have you heard about this? There was this article this week in Variety magazine where Variety reports that Sony music sources have told them that more than 500,000 copies of Adele's new album, 30, have been manufactured. It's being released on November 19th. Think about that, 500,000 copies, 500,000 copies. But in order to do this, in order to print 500,000 copies of Adele's album, Sony has been pushing its many other releases and catalog titles to offshore, to overseas pressing plants in order to ensure there is no shortage of Adele albums this Christmas. So there's a barrage of these albums being pressed, presumably in North America, and it's creating all these issues. So a bunch of releases have been shipped, I don't know, this thing overseas to Europe or whatever to get pressed as a result. And get a load of this. In order for this album to be released on November 19th, Adele had to wrap up all the recording. Everything had to be done, mixed and mastered more than 6 months ago. So what does that bring us to? That's like April or May. So this album was completely done in April, May. Could have been released in the spring. But in order to get this on vinyl, it was done 6 months ago. This article says that most artists are given deadlines even earlier than Adele's, typically 8 to 9 months. That's the lead up time for a record, in order for it to be released, you know, the same time as it comes out on digital. And there's this interesting quote here, and this is how important it is for artists to release their product, physical copies on vinyl at the same time as the digital version. This article says, if you miss your album street date by 3 to 4 months, it can reduce your record sales 30 to 40% of what they could have been otherwise. So obviously it was important for Sony to get the Adele album out on vinyl on release day, or risk losing, 30 to 40% of record sales. But again, there's been a cost to this. Other releases are being pushed aside. Less prominent artists are having their albums pushed back into next year. It's creating all these problems. There have been other artists too that have been kind of pushing the lesser artists out of the way. I use the term lesser artists. Releases by Ed Sheeran, ABBA. I think the ABBA album is being released today. Coldplay and Taylor Swift have been given priority. Of course, you take that and couple that with the record store day releases that are, coming out in a couple weeks, and these record pressing plants have absolutely no shortage of work. So when I read this, I was my gut reaction was that this is lame. That, of course, the big guy wins again, that money talks, and these big artists, 500,000 copies. How ridiculous is that? That these big artists are pushing everyone else out of the way, and us music fans are being forced to wait longer for many of the records we do want, right? That was my sort of knee-jerk initial reaction. But then I thought about this a bit more. And how crazy is it that an artist today commands that sort of demand for physical product? They expect to sell 500,000 Adele albums between now and Christmas. That's mind-blowing. Who sells 500,000 records nowadays? So in that light, this is really a good thing, perhaps, right? It speaks to, the fact that younger people are getting into this, and, it's not just us middle-aged guys sitting in the basement who are buying records. There's a whole new audience for this stuff. And that is very encouraging, right? Because without younger people, this hobby is going to shrivel up and die. So I'm trying to remain positive about this. Of course, there's all sorts of other issues. I did a video recently where I speculated, maybe we're reaching peak vinyl. Maybe as we come out of the pandemic, record prices will level off. Well, I take all of that back now. If we're seeing lead-up times for records of 6 to 9 months, if the big guns can come in and push all the other artists out of the way and ship production to, overseas in order to make room for Adele, prices are not going to go down anytime soon. I think I can admit that, which is too bad. Prices are going to keep rising just because the demand is there, pandemic or not. So not to be too negative, but that is the other kind of takeaway I get out of this. There's the good. Young people are getting into this. All sorts of people are getting into this. On the other side, demand. Man, this is crazy. Prices are going to continue to go up. That is my take. What do you make of the fact that they are pressing 500,000 copies of Adele's album, and by doing that, pushing all these other artists out of the way in order to make room for this one release? Have a great rest of the weekend. I'll see you again on Sunday. Till then, keep on spinning.